Bonsoir.
You are so insufferable.
I really wanted to surprise you with that one. I had that one tucked deep in my sleeve.
Okay.
Welcome back, guys, to the Popcorn for Dinner podcast.
hmm
Today, I am joined by my great friend Hajer from the Downtime with Hajer
hmm
podcast. Ça va?
Ça va bien, merci, et vous?
I think she's
Yes.
good. I think that's what she means. Listen, for all those listeners who are actually interested, so I just come up from France, right? And I really want to learn
I don't
French.
think
And
any
I
of the
asked a certain
listeners are
somebody.
interested in what you do. None of them are
So I've been on
interested.
this French gas, and I just, I'm picking up this French thing quite slowly, and we'll see how it goes. But anyway, today we'll be discussing obviously the best show on TV right now, The White Lotus, season 2, episode 4 and 5.
hmm
Both written and directed by Mike White, of course, which is probably like the easiest part of the podcast.
hmm
And yeah, I mean, before we delve into it, I mean, two really wild, uh, interesting episodes.
hmm
Basically, just wanted to say, if you guys please review, rate, subscribe to everything, all the platforms. Um, kind of let us know how we're doing. Give us like comments on anything that you think, on any thoughts that come to you. We have like a couple of episodes coming up. We'll have like a TV recommendations episode coming up. We have like a top 10 TV shows coming up this year. I mean, sort of going through it
Can I be on that
um
episode,
last
please?
week's episode. Can you be on that episode?
Banky
Banky, are you
hates
hearing
me. He never
this?
asked me to be on the episodes anymore.
Bankley,
Ever
I think
since I
Bankley
started
hates
slandering the
everybody. So
MCU, he doesn't let me on the episodes anymore. But the MCU
I
should
slander
be
the MC
rightfully
all the
slandered.
time.
So,
Well, I mean, I think Quentin Tarantino has come out a list of many, smart people like us, and obviously like
yes,
Martin
we don't need
Scorsese who slander the
validation from
MCU.
some
But
old white man, minus Scorsese, of course, Marty. My goods.
oh my gosh. And also we've got like Atlantic episode as well for all those fans of Donald Glover, Childish Gambino. Not me, fortunately. And we've got other things coming up as well. So please, guys, don't forget to rate, review, subscribe. We're also on YouTube, so leave us some YouTube comments, slide into our DMs. You know,
Obiora was that
for other
black
reasons
guy
as well. If you want to
saying
slide
white
into our
lives
DM.
matter. He's so racist.
I was not that person.
Yeah, that's what he was.
You're gonna put me in trouble right
Obiora was
now.
at the
Jeez.
Capitol when they stormed it. He was helping them open the
Oh, you on
doors.
January 6th? Excuse me. Anyway, all right, let's get into the episode. Thanks, guys, again for listening. And yeah, it's a break. So, Haja, White Lotus episode 4 and 5. I mean, I feel like
Let's start with episode
with
4.
these episodes, it's just been getting better and better, hasn't
It
it?
it
Like
definitely
I think
has.
this. I feel like I'm much more invested in these characters than I was in season 1. But what do you think of
Mm-mm.
these two? Of episode 4?
Um,
Let's start with episode 4. What do you think of episode
I
4?
really fucking enjoyed this episode. I thought that it was doing so many really amazing things, and there's so many like lines and quotes that really, really stood out to me, and that just like unlocked a lot of like thinking and reflection on my part. And
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I
Mm-hmm.
also feel like, similar to you, I'm becoming a lot more invested in these characters. I also feel that we're beginning to like understand sort of their position, not only in relation to each other, but like in terms of like, okay, the marriages, or Portia and Portia and Albie,
Mm-hmm.
and the three generation of men, but sort of like their relation to sort of their own identity and who they are trying to become, who they have become, like, all these different sort of exceptions and different rules and different games being played, particularly within the romantic relationships, are really, really interesting to observe. And then you move on to like episode 5, and you see that evolve, in a transactional relationship between the
Mm-hmm.
sex
Mm-hmm.
workers and
Mhm.
their
Mhm.
clients. And I think that is just, there's a lot going on that you can really really talk about. So yeah, I also think this season has solidified itself as sort of like, we're talking about gender and sex politics and desire. That's sort of more apparent in this season
Mhm.
than it was in the first. I think the first one was sort of about like white
Yeah.
privilege, colonialism. This one is sort of about male privilege. And I
Yeah.
think
Relation to race. Yeah.
sort of like our different
This one is
attitudes.
all about Dick.
Yeah, it is all about Dick. It is all about Dick. And turns out Dick is
Well,
very
and oh,
profound.
probably not Vanity.
Who would have thought?
I think Dick makes the world go around.
Dick
Apparently,
does make the
yeah,
world go round.
yeah. Which
What's that
I mean, you
Kanye
brought up
lyric where he's
relationships,
like,
right?
I wouldn't be here without calm. What's the song?
I Is this a new Kanye song? Because
No,
I
this is
probably
from the
don't
life of
know because I haven't
Pablo.
listened to.
Or is it from the life of Pablo? No,
I
it's
did.
from the one where
I
it's like
haven't
his
listened.
handwriting on it. Um,
Yay!
None of
I
us
haven't
would
listened to a rap
be
song
here
in about
without
six
calm.
months.
Yeah,
So,
it's none of us would be here without calm. Yeah,
oh
that's
my
the line.
days.
Okay, Balcony, please
There's
edit
only
that
the only
out.
bit. Absolutely not. I mean, you brought up, I mean, romantic relationships,
Hmm.
right? Which I think we'll sort of go from here. Like,
Hmm.
which one would you say you're most invested in so far?
Definitely, Cameron and
5 episodes in.
definitely Cameron and his wife. I always forget her name. Is her name Megan? I think the actress's name is Megan.
Daph.
Daphne.
No, not Daphne. Yeah,
So
Daphne. Yeah,
Daphne
yeah,
and
Daphne.
Cameron
Yeah.
and Harper and Ethan. Yeah. Oh my God, there's so much to say about that. But I'm also very invested in the budding relationship between Albie and Lucia, the young Prost. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a really fascinating relationship. But I think that there's something I really really want
Speaking of, I mean,
to.
oh, I just got a message from the big boss
Hmm.
Bankole. He asked me to ask you because I think the last episode we're kind of slandering Albie quite a bit. We're sort of saying we don't believe his old good boy act shtick. We think he's full of shit.
Hmm.
Yada yada yada. Do you think we're a bit too hard on him? Do you think we're
I think you were sort of just picking up on the clues that the writers are leaving. So, like, I think that something that's very evident in this season is sort of like, we're trying to talk about even that whole Godfather scene in episode 3, right? We're talking about how
Mhm.
things change and evolve through the ages. What do different generations perceive as being a man? And I think that's a really important question. So, what is it to
Yeah,
be a man, to the grandfather, to the father, to his son?
to be
And
a real
and
nigga.
I think
Yeah,
in this episode, the fourth one, he says like father, like son, which I think is a really, really key
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
incredibly written line. It's so perfect. And so I think that Albie,
Hmm.
I'm like 65% sure he might turn out to be a villain, but he didn't go in the direction that I predicted in episodes 4 and 5. He went in an entirely different direction. So
Same.
I feel like maybe we're still waiting. We have 2 episodes left, right? We might be waiting for his fuck up, but I think that he's there to illustrate that there is that other type of guy. When he asked Portia to go somewhere, he's like, "Oh, I'm
Men
being
can be
aggressive."
saved.
It's really interesting, and I think he also really does a good job at illustrating the female desire. Because I think it's very simple to
Hmm.
go say, oh, no one likes nice guys. But I just don't agree because look at how much Lucia welcomes that kind of male contact in her life because of her line of work. That
Hmm.
is the type of guy that
Yeah.
she is more comfortable with, more safe with. Whereas you have Portia, who sort of has the rugged Essex boy who is showing her a bit of
So,
that danger, a bit
yeah.
of that
I mean,
spontaneity. And that's what she desires. And that is fine.
that's
I think it's a really good way of illustrating that whatever we desire is fine, so long as it's within a certain place. But I think it's just an interesting way to show, yeah, women are attracted to these sometimes. Some women, or most women, as men like to say, are attracted to these dangerous types. Um, but like, yeah, I don't know. That's
the
what I
villains.
sort of feel about it. But I don't think Albie is completely. I would say he's innocent until proven guilty, but I'm gonna keep my eye on him. That's what I will say.
What do you think about? I mean, Jack. Essex boy, you know, tall, blonde,
Not my type, but handsome. You know,
cockney. No,
he's cute, but I don't really
not
like
bad.
Essex
I mean,
accents.
the funny thing about it is like once that once he was like sort of when Sabra like British Essex accent out, I was just like, I'm not saying I can relate to this, but there've been a couple of times on holidays where when I started talking, it's like anyway.
Oh my god, Bakune,
On
please delete this man's attempt at talking about his holiday riz on this goddamn podcast. Please, Bakune, for the sake
whatever
of all
happens,
people listening,
whatever
nobody
happens
wants
on
to
whatever
think
happens on
about
holiday,
Obiora's holiday
whatever
riz.
happens on
Like,
holiday
no one
stays
cares.
stays on holiday. What happens on holiday stays on holiday. I mean, you did bring up Cameron and Daphne because we definitely spoke about. I mean, who has not the upper hand, but sort of the upper hand in that relationship where
Hmm.
Daphne's definitely aware that Cameron is, obviously cheating on her and stuff,
Okay,
but she's not
can
calm.
I?
But at the same time, she's not she's not going to let this fucking
Mm,
guy,
hmm.
you know, control her emotions in life or make her sad. So she's going to do her own thing.
Hmm.
So what do you think of that?
So
That that
I have
vibe.
several thoughts about that, but I want to start with a line that stood out to me in episode 4. And I
Go on.
think it's so key and it's so central to this entire season, especially when we're thinking about gender and sex politics and power and the way that it shifts within relationships.
Hmm.
And it's Lucia, she says, whores are always punished. I think that is a really, really great line. And the
Why?
girl, are you not going to let me elaborate?
I'm gonna cut in.
Okay,
Never let you land.
so I think what's really, really interesting is that there is sort of no, like a lot of writers, like feminist thinkers and writers, they talk about how there's really no universally held definition of the word whore. Anyone can be a whore. And there's an Italian anthropologist, her name is Paola Tibet, and she talks about how there is
Go
a
on.
socio-economical exchange and it's a continuum, right? So we don't actually have a dichotomy
Hmm.
between marriage and prostitution, but that they are placed in a continuum with variation. So you can be called whore depending on whatever culture you belong to, because that exchange of money for goods or sex as property is defined as legitimate and illegitimate across many different cultures you can find. I'm doing a very, very, very like spark note summary. I really recommend you go and read it. It's very simple. It's not very.
Where does the where does the I mean, but where does the dynamic of power come in? Because you can see a king won't be called a whore, basically.
Yeah, so what I
Doesn't
so
class
you
come
know
into
what's so
this?
interesting is, so the universal element though that encompasses all of these different definitions is that transgression. So
Hmm.
whatever rule that operates in whatever society you live in concerning women's bodies as property, once you transgress those rules, you can be called whore. And there's a whole like theory, yeah,
Right.
called the whole stigma, and it's like often described as a whip that holds women under subordination. And I think it's very, very interesting with
Right.
Daphne and Cameron. You sort of see that
Hmm.
fight for power and that, like, there's just that struggle. She tries to get one over on him, but she's not really happy about the state of affairs. And ultimately, she is sort of playing like a losing game, I think. Right? Like,
Do you think so?
I
I
think
don't.
she is. I
Hmm.
mean, and I will elaborate on why I think she is. I'm sure you've heard many, 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 many times, the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. But she's seeking a solution
Hmm.
for her unhappiness or for her husband's infidelity and his betrayals or wrongdoings within the boundaries of a space
She doesn't have
in
any
which where
friends.
she really doesn't have any true power, because he pays and she provides a service. That
Hmm.
service is being a wife, to put it simply, right? But she doesn't really have
Hmm.
agency. So any solution that she comes up with that stays within the boundaries of this relationship in which she fundamentally, because of the way society runs, lacks power, she, it's still on his terms. You get what I mean? At the end of the day, he still has the upper hand. When you really think about it, he still has the upper hand. Her having an affair with a random Pilates trainer isn't going to change those dynamics, right? And I think that they do a really good job of showing how that solution is unsatisfactory. They do wrinkle it a little bit, I feel, with the advances that Cameron eventually makes on Harper. That's very, very interesting. And I thought that was like really cool. I was like, yeah, I'm very happy. Like,
That is very, very
that was
spicy.
so spicy. Oh my God. I was like,
So
damn. I was like, damn.
are those are we meant to think that those are Cameron's kids then, or that's the trainer's kids?
Oh, I didn't, my mind didn't go there. I don't know why.
I mean, because she was talking about how
Oh, that's
you
actually
know
a really good
he's
hint.
got
I didn't pick up on that at all.
blonde hair and blue eyes, and she just showed half of the picture of his kid. I'm just like, wait, what? So are we supposed to think that these are not Cameron's kids then? Well, that do you think that changes?
Ooh, if they're not his kids,
I
then
mean, we're
that
sort of
sort
talking
of
about how
changes
like,
my theory because men really care about like legacy and shit. So
mm,
if those are not his children, that appends, not appends, but definitely dents that she doesn't have actually as much power as she does. Because if she's been deceiving him and leaves his legacy of like wealth or whatever to another man's children, that is a great chess move on her part.
mhm,
Like that is a huge sort of like win for her.
yeah. So I don't think I think he's sort of unaware of what she's getting up to as well.
Hmm.
I think that he thinks that she's just like a good stay-at-home wife, and he doesn't
Yeah,
really
I
know
don't
the
think he's
shenanigans
very
she's up
aware of
to
anything.
when he's at.
Um,
I mean, that was. I do love her scenes with Harper though.
yes,
Daphne and Harper. I don't know. I feel like they always have the best.
they do.
They have the best sort of one-to-one
And
scenes.
the
Sorry, about to say
yes,
something.
no, the Daphne character. So that's I think Fahey. I always forget her first name. I think it's Megan. She gives such an incredible, subtle
Hmm.
performance. Like
Hmm.
you know what she does with her eyes when she's speaking to her.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Really good eye
and
acting.
in the third episode, she talks about what men really lack, and that they're just all alone and stuff. I think she's just really, really good
Hmm.
at doing a lot with a little, which I really enjoy. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but I think going on like desire, I think there's something that I really want to bring up. Just I don't know if you have this in your notes, but I think it's really like because this like is coming to me. What I was watching, when they're going in and out of the bedrooms, the like prostitutes, it's like a farce kind of like if you've ever seen like a French farce
Hmm.
or like Commedia dell'arte, which is like Italian farce, right? And the plots are very, very
Of
like
course.
they hinge on like they're all about like infidelity, marriage, and then there's usually like a very clever like underling or like servant character who sort of like you know wins in the end, right? But I thought that the hotel
Yeah.
manager's crush on the receptionist is really, really interestingly done. And
Valentina.
Valentina, right? And I feel like we're getting more of like the quote unquote inner farce, I guess you'd call them like downstairs characters. um I
Yeah, I'm quite interested to see like where that is going because that came out not out of nowhere, but I mean her coworker, her colleague gave her a compliment and now she's, you know, sexually attracted to this lady and, literally banished her coworker because
no,
I don't know, he was looking at her funny. What was
I
her
think
name?
it's. I
Goals?
know.
Is that
Yeah, but
goals?
like I think it's so interesting. It's not though, but what I find really striking about that is the way that she says men are intrusive, men are aggressive, then proceeds to literally sexually harass this woman. Because I personally think what she's doing is actually harassment. Like she's not made any explicit advances.
Is that sexual
I
harassment?
wouldn't define it as sexual harassment, but she's now the one making this woman uncomfortable. She gives her this
She's
gift.
she's walking the
She
line.
isn't. She's towing it,
Yeah.
in my opinion. Right? She gives her this
Do
gift.
you
One
reckon?
hundred percent. She gives her this gift. She isolates her from someone she desires. Like that's just like leading up to being like harassing
Right.
someone. Right? You've taken away the person because you know they're
Hmm.
attracted to them and you're jealous. That's so unprofessional. That's not none of your business. Right? You keep giving her gifts, you're staring at her, you're lingering, you're sort of imposing this expectation on her.
Mate,
It's the same way we
when
feel
she
with
just
the F. Murray
stares.
Abraham character, where he looks at these young women, he lingers on them, but it's so, it's like, I don't know what the Mike White is trying to say, which I really like about this show. Like, I feel like sometimes they just throw questions out there and they don't answer
It's like you're
them.
trying to say something, but I don't know it
I don't know
yet.
it yet,
I don't
so
know it
I'm
yet,
really
and I need a bit of
intrigued.
time to think to think of the right words to actually
Yeah.
put it. Um, Harper and Ethan.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, their relationship is a bit weird, isn't it? Because you sort of brought up Cameron and Harper.
Hmm.
That I'm not sure if his energy was reciprocated back to him when he was filling up on a leg. I don't know.
I think she
What did
definitely
you think
like
of that? Do you
flirted with
think
the
that?
idea of like him.
Mm,
Yeah,
that wine tasting session was a.
that was a
I
hoot.
I know I've been wine tasting before, right? But
Really?
I don't think he'd ask. I don't think no. I just go, pub tavern. I think you won't ask the guy to pour the wine and fill it up, right? You don't do
No,
that.
you don't. You
That's the
really
most
don't.
like
That's really
British
like
slash.
bad etiquette.
That's yeah, really. It sounds really bad. I don't down it all and
You
ask him
really do not
to
down it. You're
pour
meant to
more.
taste it.
That guy's face was perfect. Just a lot of like subtle comedic moments on this show where it's like
Yeah.
this is really really good writing. This is really really funny stuff. So, what the fuck? Why is she doing all of? Is she just like? Is she still distraught about finding the
I
condom,
think I
or
think
does she still think
I
that
think she's coming to terms
Ethan
with the fact
cheated? She doesn't
that,
trust
yeah,
Ethan.
no, no. I think she's coming to terms with the fact that she's with someone who might potentially lie to her where she never had that possibility in her mind before. I think, it's so
Right.
interesting how Daphne's happy that Cameron has a friend like Ethan, but obviously Harper has to be afraid that Ethan has a friend like Cameron. And
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point.
and
That's a
I
good
think it's
point.
this whole thing. Like, you see them do obviously money is very, very important in this show. We were following a lot of rich people, but going back to that whole idea of whores are like punished, right? So like if you like that sort of like sexual deviance, that immoral thing is sort of
Mm,
it's reserved for
mm-hmm,
like the lower class people, the people who are having sex in order to survive. But with Ethan, it's sort of like the
mm-hmm,
more money you have, the more opportunity you have to engage in that sexual deviance. I don't know whether that was deliberate, but I definitely made that connection where it's like, for on the one hand, the people with money engaging in sexual deviance is sort of like a byproduct of their success, whereas like it is part of
yeah,
your failure as a woman to have to sell your body or for your body to be your capital, and are a sex worker. Um, Even when she
mm-hmm.
meets Albie and she
What's that
says,
phrase?
you don't like, I can tell you will be different with me or whatever.
Yeah, we'll get we'll get to Al because he did some really bozo shit, and I think it was episode four.
I
Um,
feel bad for
yeah,
him,
I'm,
but
I'm
he's also
pretty.
like such a fool. Like,
I felt bad. I was like, oh, Albie, but I was like, but this guy, you're such a goofy man. Christ, literally, like the next line I've got it here. Sort of, staying on Harper
mhm,
and Ethan. Like there was that conversation, and we're kind of talking about it early on before we clicked record. Um, like I'm not sure what Harper's point was. I think she wanted to out the fact that Cameron cheated
mhm.
or someone cheated or something, and they started asking about like, so have you ever had a threesome? Have you ever watched something? And I was like, this is really awkward and uncomfortable, and I'm not really sure. I guess it was lit, and then when you're pretty lit and pretty drunk,
Mhm.
you ask really silly questions, don't you? Especially when it's
I
wine,
think it's a really good like.
French or Italian wine.
Oh, I think it's a really good display of what Ethan mentions at the winery. It's called like mimetic rivalry, right? So this whole idea of like
There we
mimetic
go.
desire,
Yeah,
that we only desire things because basically the point is sort of like desire something
someone else
that's
has it.
fundamentally a social thing, right? We desire things because other people desire them.
Hmm.
And I think obviously the person who came up with the theory of mimetic desire also implied that a lot of rivalry follows. And I think what um
Who came up with the
His
concept?
name is Rene something. He's French, but I honestly don't remember. But I know his name is Rene something.
Okay, no worries.
Um, but I think what Aubrey Plaza is doing, which I think is really interesting. So she's taken the cue from Daphne, and she's like, "Oh, this is a game, right? It's about power. It's about who
Mhm.
wins." And I think she takes that
Mhm.
and she plays with it because she plays up that rivalry with Cameron because she is flirting with him by asking that question. She flirts with him when she does the leg thing. She engages in
Mhm.
that because she knows it'll make Ethan uncomfortable because she knows it'll unnerve him.
Mhm.
And this is her way of sort of I guess I guess signposting or signaling that she's now ready for the game. Whereas before, she was really trying to
Right.
stay out of it because she wanted to prove that they were above that. They're a better couple, right? They trust each other, they're honest. And I think one thing I really like about these two episodes is
Yeah. We're better than all these other
yeah,
couples.
one thing I
Yeah.
really like about these two episodes is it sort of asks, okay, so the perfect couple who don't look great, who are not actually great on the inside,
I was literally
are
going
not
to
a good
ask you.
couple, but then we are also not a good couple. So I think the main question is who is a good couple? And I think the answer is no one.
That's literally what.
No
Yeah.
one.
I was going to ask who do you think is a happier couple between Ethan and Harper and
I
Cameron and
mean, Cameron and
Daphne?
Daphne, at least they're still shagging. Like, fucking Ethan loves the
Yeah.
bouncy
But
MILF moms. So
it's all a facade though, isn't it? Isn't
I'm
it?
really
Like, is it
interested.
better being happy under?
Uh-huh.
Is it better being happy under a facade than being whatever the fuck Harper and Ethan are?
I personally would rather
I
be in
think that's
Cam.
what Mike White is trying to ask
I think
us.
I'd rather be in Daphne's position, but that's just a personal choice.
Let's get you a Pilates trainer then, baby.
Yeah, like I'd rather that, honestly. Like honestly, I'd rather that. I think I'd just come to the
um,
conclusion that like again, it's that whole exchange, right? It's what I mentioned earlier. It's like this is an arrangement,
yeah.
and I think it also because of obviously the sex workers are a prominent part of this season, and the entire like point of the sex trade is that it's defined by the right of men to use their money to have power over women, right? To purchase women. And
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think it really
Hmm.
highlights I think the season focuses on the very transactional nature of all relationships, even the ones that you think of as legitimate. You know, like even the ones that are like you may think that a sex worker and her client is an illegitimate relationship, but a wife and her husband definitely not. But everyone is still bartering. Like whether you're using guilt to get
Hmm.
something, or you're using sex to get something, or you're actually using money to get something, or gifts, like you're still
Hmm.
bartering, and it's all in this very like extended power play. Um, is sort of the
Yeah.
way I see it.
At least they didn't ask. They didn't ask who was going to pay for the next date. So that's good to
I
hear.
have a question for you
I think.
though.
I mean, uh oh.
What do you think about the whole like male competition aspect? Like, do you think that like rivalry is like a mass like is inherently part of like male relationships? Because obviously you will have them. I don't have. I'm not a man.
um, I've I am definitely a man, but I don't think, especially within, I I think within my like sort of group of friends, we're all. I don't think we. I don't think we're like that, but I know it's. But I think we're kind of like the. I don't want to say exemption, but it definitely is a
Mhm.
thing. It definitely is a thing. I mean, you see it all the time about. Oh, he's doing this, so I'm gonna do this instead. Oh, he's buying 3 bottles. I'm gonna buy 4 bottles. Like,
Yeah.
just dumb things like that. I'm
Yeah.
just like, I'm really. I'd rather be doing something else, do you know what I'm saying? Rather than like, trying to see who's the most alpha of the alpha. But it definitely does happen though. And I feel like, especially if you get that rich and successful within them circles, it's just, what did this guy call it? The dick swinging contest,
But
basically.
can I just complain about one thing?
Big up Michael
I'm just
Lewis.
gonna, but I'm gonna, you might edit it out, but
Wait,
honestly,
complain about me?
yes,
Go
when
on.
Ethan fucking says, you should be happy I didn't do anything, you fucking shit.
Oh
He's
yeah, yeah.
such a shit. Like, you're such a fucking shit. You can't.
I was
I
like,
would
Ethan, you're
literally,
a goon,
no,
man.
like, Harper
You
is
are
a
a
better woman
goon.
than me. I would have thrown him off the balcony. I would have killed him right then and there. You want
I don't
an
think she knew what
award
to
for
do at
being
that
faithful to your
instance.
wife? Are you sick in the
That was
head?
a pretty. That was a pretty wild thing to say. It should be
Especially
pretty.
when you've been caught
Yeah.
red-handed. Like you were caught red-handed.
Oh my god.
Sorry.
But apparently he didn't. But he didn't do anything, according to him. Oh man. Okay, let's. I think we've been on these people for a while. Let's move on to Albie. And I mean, I think the thing about it is like initially we had like five different storylines, but now they've all seemed to sort of converge.
Hmm.
'Cause I have like the three Italians and Tanya and
I'm worried those like gays might be scamming
Portia
her, low key. I don't know. Something about it feels
and Quentin.
dishonest.
Is it Tom Hollander that's just really I don't know I don't really trust him in
I don't
anything.
know.
I watched him in the night manager, and he was obviously the bad guy with Hugh Laurie, and I just like I don't trust this guy at all. But that's a good shout though.
I don't really
He could be
trust.
scamming
Like
her.
it's
Like
and I particularly picked up on it
I don't
because
trust. I literally have it in my notes.
she
I don't
says
trust him.
something about how meeting people with money is good because you can get comfortable that they don't want yours. And I feel like because she said that, it like made my ears perk up and be like, maybe they do though.
Hmm. Yeah, and I don't think. So I haven't really thought about it, but
Hmm.
I mean, if it happens now, I'd be quite surprised. But I mean, what do you think of him? Like him and her
I
relationship?
really enjoyed it.
Because I don't know, it feel yeah, it's pretty. I mean, she looks like she's like
Hmm.
happy for the first time in the show. I guess since she met Greg and stuff. But I think what is even more interesting is Portia and Jack,
Hmm.
and I guess we could bring in Albie here as
Hmm.
well. I mean, how do you feel about Portia?
I like her, but you know what made me laugh? She reminded me, like, you know, when you don't like a guy, and so all you can say is, "Oh my god, he's so nice. He's so nice. He's actually so nice." Like, if you met him, you know he was so nice. He went to Stanford. Oh my god, he's so nice. That's like when you're
Oh
not attracted to someone, and your friends ask you how the date went, and you're like, "Yeah, he's so nice. Like, really, really nice."
why didn't she tell him? I mean, don't you feel like why did she just tell him that she doesn't want to hang out anymore rather than waiting, you know, letting or sort of standing him up basically. That was a
I
bit
don't think she
young, wasn't
necessarily
it?
stood him up, but I do think what she did was unfair. Like, I wish she just told him, like, "Oh,
Yeah, just tell him,
yeah."
man. Like, even if it's sad, at least he knows,
Mhm.
rather than him, some false.
But to my surprise, she was actually bothered by him with Lucia. She was, and I know, like, because I know women. She was
I
bothered.
literally have it here. Was she
She was
bothered here?
bothered.
So she's a bit of a scumbag as
No,
well, actually.
but
So
she's
why is
so
she?
real because wouldn't you be?
Uh,
She's so real. So because I rejected you, Hammer.
who gave you the audacity to go
So
leave
I
it with
wouldn't
another
even care,
girl?
but in front of me, like, how dare you?
Because she was like, I mean, she was like, I've got to leave.
But
Let's
I think
go.
it's just a normal human thing, right? Like it's just human. Like we overestimate our importance to people, right? So it's very like it's sort of narcissistic, but it is true. I'm sure we've all felt this way. You like
Yeah,
someone and you're the
Shameless
one
has that
rejecting
lyric.
them. How dare they replace you so fast? Like
Yeah,
when you're the one
actually, no, it's not.
rejecting them. And I also obviously because she sort of I definitely think subconsciously felt, oh well, I'm doing him a favor. Like look at me and look at like he's like the nerdy one and I'm sort of like
Yeah, yeah,
attractive and
yeah. Who's
interesting.
punching
And
here?
so,
Who's
the way
punching
that
here?
goes.
I mean, fair play to man. I love Lucia and Mia, man. It's like fair play to us. Like, oh, let's try and get her back. But before we get to
Hmm.
that, the end of episode 5. What the fuck?
I'm guessing that's not his nephew.
I'm guessing that's not his nephew as well because, I mean, I was not
He
expecting
might also be
that.
a sex
I didn't know what I was
worker.
expecting
He
to be
might
fair.
also be a sex worker.
Who, Jack?
Yeah. The Essex boy, I didn't
Oh,
bother to learn his
definitely.
name.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, definitely. Because I mean, because you sort of think, why? When what's this guy doing here? It's like, oh, it's his nephew. Like, oh, sure, sure. But then that happens, and you're like, oh wow, wowie, wowie,
Do you know
wowie.
something I've noticed that I really like? Whenever something like sus happens, they zoom in on the artwork. around
Yeah,
the
yeah.
place.
And the art always, it kind of always reflects what's
Yeah.
happening in the moment as
And
well.
even like the whole like idea when she says like who's always punished and this, you just see them focus on eyes. And I think that sort of
Hmm.
like I don't I remember I think it was the very first episode, was it the second episode, where they come and they see the like the clay pots made of the decapitated head, and they tell them that story about the woman who, found out this man was like unfaithful and cut his head up and put it in the ground and it grew plants or
All the good
whatever.
stuff, yeah.
But like I think the whole like that theme sort of is like secrets will always come out. And I think when they pan to the paintings, especially with the eyes, it's like someone is actually always watching. And I think it like links to what Michael Imperioli um, says with to his father, where he's like, do
Dom,
you think you were really
yeah,
that discreet? Like somebody is actually
right.
always aware of
We
the
could see
wrong
you.
that
We
you're
could
doing.
literally see
Yeah.
you. It's like, we can see your tweets, Hajer.
What tweets?
sorry, sorry, that was
That
really
was really
unnecessary.
low
But
vibrational.
gosh, even this low
That
vibration
was
stuff as
really low
well.
vibrational.
But yeah, I don't know what to think, man, because like that final scene really, I was just like, whoa, whoa, this compatibility, and I was like, okay, what happens to Jack, what happens to Tanya, how does she relay this information to Portia, what happens to Albie now? Albie's happy with Lucia, but there's Portia like want to link up again. I only have 2 episodes more, so like, how can they all cram all of this in 2 hours, basically? That'd be quite interesting to see. Are you much of a theatre person?
I literally used to be an actor.
Oh,
Yeah, like I used to
what's
do
your favorite like
Shakespeare
theatre
for my
production?
county. Yeah,
Jeez,
I am much of a theatre person. But why do you ask?
wow, man,
I don't.
that's
Are you asking whether I like the
because I
opera?
went to that. Yeah, was that opera? I thought that was
No, it's
theatre. See,
opera.
see how cultured cultured I am. Well, you did ask me whether I like art earlier on, and I obviously, said yes, didn't I?
Yeah. So that's the. I
Yeah.
think I've never actually been to the opera, but I've heard great things.
Where's that opera house? Is that Australia?
Um, the
S-
Sydney Opera House. Yeah.
Some Sydney Opera House. There we go. Um, Albie and Lucia's relationship, like that was pretty nice, wasn't it? I guess that's like the one redeeming thing of the show so far. Like, I think they're actually trying to have you know some kind of actual connection, but at the same time, I'm quite cynical. Obviously, because I'm an actuary, I'm
Mhm.
obviously automatically cynical of like her motives. And she was talking with
Yes. Oh
with
my
Mia
god. I was literally about to say that
about,
as well.
is this
I am
is
not
this my way
sure
out
that
of here?
Lucia has the most noble of motives with Albie. And
What
I
do
feel
you what do
like
you
that
mean?
conversation she had with the guy in the street sort of cemented that for me. It felt like he was a paid actor. I don't know how to explain it. It felt like a con. I just feel like a con is going on, you know?
Really? Oh, that is all the way cynical.
Yeah. But I
Yeah.
also
So
don't
I was
want to believe
thinking,
that. Like I also like because I don't know if you noticed this, but the wardrobe design is excellent job. Once she stops searching for clients and she's
obviously
with
I
him,
noticed that.
she's wearing like she's no longer wearing
Yeah.
the sparkly dresses and the heels. She's wearing boots and like this yellow dress. She's a lot more covered. And I don't know, like I want to believe that at best I hope she's just using him to like hopefully he brings her back to LA, she can get a green card or some shit. But like I don't want her to be like using him, in the worst way. Because everyone's using
Yeah.
someone. But like this
Like, yeah, you literally brought up like what transactional relationships and stuff in
yeah.
it. But yeah, I mean that scene where she was like, but the money after the amazing night was
I thought
like,
that was really interesting. She was like, the money for me. I thought that was really, really interesting, actually.
no, but she's just so conditioned, isn't she, that all her relationships must be transactional and
Yeah.
there's like nowhere else and stuff. So, but it was like, oh, it's like pretty nice to see them, doing their thing. But I'm pretty worried though, because I think like I think she's going to die.
You think she's going to die?
I
Okay,
think
so what are
she
your
might die.
predictions for dead people now? Now that we've moved on up in the story,
Lucia,
Lucia.
because it's gonna be a
I
couple of
think
people.
Jack
Oh
is
yeah,
dying.
Lucia and Jack. Yeah, them two. Because I feel like it's all. I mean, I do have it in my notes as well. She was talking about how she doesn't want to be alone and punished.
Hmm.
Um, she meets an Italian pimp. Gosh, it's not going to end well. Lol, I've got Mia is going to sign a 360 deal with Birdman. Um, but yeah, I feel like just the conversations she was having, it was quite like existential. Is that the word? But how she thinks or she's foreseen that things are going to end
Hmm.
soon. Just like, oh, this is pretty. This is not nice. What do you think?
Um, I feel like I feel like she's just conditioned to think that things can really only end one way.
Mm,
And so as a result, like of course she thinks that way, like it's just her conditioning. But I'm not too sure. I definitely also
hmm.
think that one of the four men are dying as well. Like I think it's gonna be um um I think one of the three generations might die.
Oh
Yeah,
right.
like I'm definitely quite
Ooh,
sure of that right now.
wow.
Yeah.
Have you seen spoilers or
No,
something?
no, 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 no. I
Oh,
just
you
haven't. No,
have.
no, 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 no. I just
Oh,
have an inkling. I haven't seen any spoilers.
oh
I just have
right,
an inkling.
right. Oh,
Yeah.
right. Okay. Yes, I'm quite interested to see what happens with Tanya. Have you got any more sort of opinions on like what's going on with Tanya right now?
Um, I think her journey is interesting. I think the advice she gives to Portia is very interesting when she says, "Don't waste your life, going after emotionally unavailable men." I think they're sort of doing a fake out with her husband.
Hmm,
Like I
hmm.
feel like she thinks it's
Yeah.
infidelity or she thinks it's something grave. It'll probably be something like, "Oh, he was planning her a surprise party," or like one of those things, right? Because before he leaves, he has these shady
Hmm.
phone calls,
Yeah.
but it just feels like it's sort of a fake out. Like I'm not really sure that it's anything serious. But I think that
Mm,
opera scene and one of the most beautiful lines when he talks about, like life is about beauty and being surrounded by that. And I think she's sort of getting to a point where she understands
yeah.
that what she needs to sustain her life or to keep going is to be able to, because she can't be on her own. Like even when she's napping, she needs Portia to sit at the end of the room. I think she's sort of understanding that she needs to become someone that she can be alone with. Because I don't think she is. I think she's
Yeah.
she's she's sort of
Hmm,
made up of
hmm.
so many of these things that she's running away from. Either she wants to get a fortune teller to lie to
Yeah.
her
I
or
mean, that's a good
whatever.
point.
The fortune teller scene
Hmm,
was also really
hmm.
interesting. A fortune teller that seems to be painted as a legitimate one, not a charlatan. Because she has these bad readings and she's like, no, this is negative.
Yeah. I don't want to go into my opinions on fortune tellers and tarot readers and all of that, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty wild to go on a holiday, then leave for 2 days and come back.
Yeah,
Talking about Greg, even if it's work, you need to tell work to just throw away your phone and just,
yeah,
you're only there for a week, innit? So, but yeah, I was supposed to bring this up on like how every day or every episode is a day,
oh, I didn't know that.
takes place over a course of a
That's
day.
interesting.
Yeah, so I think it's 7 episodes, 7 days
Okay,
of the White Lotus, which is pretty, yeah, it's pretty
that's pretty
interesting stuff. But
intense.
Dom, in Pere's character,
Hmm.
you have a lot of thoughts
Yeah,
on
like I
him,
think
so I'm
I
just
really
gonna
like.
I'm gonna pass you the ball.
I think it's
You know,
really
I want you to cook,
interesting.
please.
I don't know. I think I might have mentioned this earlier. Like each generation of these men, as you go down, think they're better than the one that came
Mhm.
before them. But I think
The three Italians, right?
yeah, they all think they're better than the one that
Or
came
Italian
before
Americans,
them.
yeah.
You look at the older one, he's just sort of a textbook misogynist, and then you have the younger one who's sort of like a misogynist, but not so much. And then you have Albie, who's trying so hard to deviate from the example that he has. And I think that conversation, and I
Yeah.
think what's really sort of touching, I think, and I didn't expect it, was when he actually like pleads and
Hmm.
says, do you really think if I had been shown how to love someone or how to treat a woman, that I would be where I am. And he's like blaming him, but I think it's just a really, I think you get to that phase where you do have these more transparent conversations with your parents about how they've,
Yeah.
impacted you or traumatized you, or sort of changed your path
Mhm.
from the norm. And I think it's
Mhm.
it's it's saying something really interesting, and I think it's very good that they are men, because you have the stigma that men don't really talk about their feelings and whatever.
Got bottle up all them
Yeah, but I think
feelings.
it's really interesting that in a show that's talking about masculinity, rivalry, all this stuff, you literally have someone asking for a better example and for a chance to be better. I think the thing about the Michael character is that he's sort of trying to pivot, right? He wants his wife back. He looks at all these couples. He feels lonely. He knows that he's done a
Yeah, he's walked
grave
through the beach.
thing to
Yeah.
lose what he has. And I think it's just a good way to
Mhm.
ask yourself, like, to what extent are our parents responsible for our bad behaviors and all our sins? Like, when does the buck sort of stop to when you can stop blaming your upbringing and you sort of have to take responsibility? And I think the show actually, because of how
Yeah.
close you have these characters, it doesn't give you a straight answer. And I think that's really interesting because most people will say, you're a grown up, just be responsible. But I think sort of watching these people, you see all their vices all at the same time, and they're all in succession to each other. It's like what he said, like father, like son. So I think it's really cool. Like, I really
Yeah.
enjoy that.
That's such a good quote. Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, like, yeah, I think that's such a good point, and especially like there was that scene with Dom and Bert, so from Abraham's character, where he was literally, I mean, he was telling him you need to be a bit more smarter and everything, and it was like, I was much more smarter than
Hmm.
you, and he was like, do you really think you were that sort of sorted in what you were
Hmm.
doing? And it's just, I mean, just see these behaviors being passed down and everything. Do you feel like Dom would be? So I was trying to make a relation between Dom and Tanya, but without the kids. In terms of being alone,
Oh, like I.
but
Oh,
I
like
think
do they
hers
work as
is
like foils to each other, right?
sort of,
Yeah,
yeah.
I didn't. I literally never considered it until you brought it up just now. But I think it's really interesting, and it could.
It's what I do, bringing up all the good, all the
We
ideas and
need to
everything. But
beat up Obiora like in a mob, like.
let's talk. Let's talk about Dom and Lucia and Albie,
Okay.
because he doesn't want. Well, he doesn't want her to find out that they've slept
Hmm.
together and everything, right? And it's like, I mean, because he offered her, the chance to. I can't remember what he offered her and
Hmm.
stuff, but he said just stay away from my son. And I'd love to see how that kind of relationship plays out. And once he's like, because Arby's definitely going to find out eventually that his dad has like slept with her, and it'll be like, how? I mean, is he still willing to go ahead with this with her? Because that is quite.
I think he sort
That
of
is quite
knows, though.
something
Like, I think he sort of knows.
with his dad.
I think he sort of knows.
With his no, I think. Well, I think he knows. Obviously, knows that she's a sex worker. I don't think he knows that she slept with his dad,
I mean, I
Albie.
personally don't think it should change anything
I think.
between them. Like, if he likes her, he likes her. Like, it's just an occupational hazard that she happened to
Yeah.
fuck his father. But, like, what's she gonna
Jeez.
do? Like, business is business. I honestly think that what stands between them is whatever both their agendas are. Because I still sort of believe the portrayal of Albie is quite naive and innocent. I don't think he quite understands. So I think what it really highlights, I think, is sort of like the different sort of realities that everyone is occupying, right? I don't think he really, really understands what it means to be a woman who's like under economic duress and obviously is now like a prostitute, right? I don't think he really understands that.
Hmm.
He sees her as like, what did he say in episode 3? Like wounded birds. Like I think he's sort of gonna see himself in sort of like a Prince Charming
Oh
way,
my
but I
gosh.
don't think he really understands
Coming to save
the
you.
gravity of what is
Hmm.
going on. And I feel like one thing we see throughout the show, which is why I brought up the farce. It's like we have these character archetypes. Like we do have these,
Hmm.
interesting character archetypes. And I also think what's really, really interesting, I don't know, I hope I haven't miss like mistaken the episodes. But when he asks her for where to get a necklace, Valentina, and she has such an aggressive attitude, and then you see the way that um, the other receptionist has an approach. She's like, "Oh, you can go to this store
Mm-hmm.
to buy jewelry for your wife. It's beautiful. It's
Isabella, yeah.
this." And
Mm-hmm.
I think
Mm-hmm.
another point that the show does make is one of like femininity and like how you can
Mm-hmm.
trade or bank on that. And you see that again later
Right.
with the
Okay.
girl who wants to sing and how she barters that with Valentina. So it's like an element that comes up in pretty much all the relationships.
Mia is literally is Mia the most wicked person on the show. She's literally gave the dodgy pill to the pianist guy, and just like taking the spot, and is gonna kick him out of the hotel eventually. Then going to sign a 360 deal. But yeah, man, I'm really enjoying this season. I'm
Yeah,
really enjoying this, and I don't know, because like they asked the last season, I was kind of like, what the fuck am I watching? Like this is just bizarre, and I mean that Sydney Sweeney's family was just strange altogether. But I think this is I don't know. I think they've kind of won up their game, and it's sort of good to kind of watch. I mean, how power relationships. I think that's a HBO
hmm
thing, isn't it? It's like Succession, Industry, and now this. It's like how can we insert power into family, into the workplace, and obviously into sex and relationships as well.
yeah,
So yeah, it's pretty good to watch.
yeah. Sorry, I forgot to
Have you got
bring
any
this
more,
up in terms of the father and his kid. But I
please?
think I just remembered something that F. Murray Abraham says. He says you've normalized it for him. And I think it's like that whole thing about like the sins of the father. So I think it's just sort of this whole idea that like, and another question I think is asking is like, how much freedom or free will do we have to deviate from the path that's set for us by our parents and the people that take care of us or look up to
Hmm.
us or the people that are meant to sort of like rear us into the world? And because you see people with very different outcomes in their lives and you know you see, I think it's
Hmm.
perfect when you have a literal family of three generations. You see sort of like maybe it is very hard to deviate from the path that is set for you by your
I
parents,
was gonna say, do you feel like because Albie's trying way too hard, do you think that
or
he's
like a
just gonna
horseshoe,
he's
right?
trying way
He
too
will
hard?
just come back.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
Just ends up, yeah, yeah.
um
Ends up
I
looking
have
like
no
those we're
answer.
trying to
I'm
avoid.
waiting to see what the show says about it,
That'll be
but I
fun.
would be really intrigued to say my prediction
That'll be quite
is an
ironic, yeah.
optimistic one. I think he will obviously still
I
be
am
misogynistic in his own ways, like just by the virtue of being raised in a world that hates women. But like,
wounded
I think
birds.
he's going to try. I think he's actually going to really try. But
We shall see. We shall
also
see.
something I thought would
But yeah,
happen
I
but
think I like
didn't.
Albie
You know
now.
when he asked his dad for money, I thought that the dad would barter, oh, call your mom and put in a good word for me, and I will pay, give you this cash that you so need.
That I think that'll be really
That would
shitty
be
because I think
really cynical though.
I, that'll have been so we already don't like this guy, but
Yeah.
like now I'd have hated this guy. Now it's like fucking hell, man. Just give him the cash. You're
Yeah.
rich enough. Um, yeah. Have you got any more final thoughts on the
I'm
show?
like, I don't think any. I can think of more if you need some, but I think I'm really stretched now.
It's fine. Um, yeah, that was the White Lotus episode 4 and 5. I forgot to put the titles on here because I'm just well prepared, aren't I?
Ooh, it's so
Going
episode
to.
5. I know it's like that's Amore because that's a song she sings at the end. So
To be fair, actually, the pianist guy, I've forgotten his name. When he was singing, that was just hilarious, man. And it
it
was
was so the show is
everyone
actually
was looking
very
at him like,
funny.
"What
Like
the
at like
hell?"
elements, it's
It's really
hilarious.
funny, man.
Like
And I was just like, yeah, I had the same face as everyone else in the restaurant, but really funny, much more much more comedy compared to the last season. But I mean, still good TV anyway. He should just keep on blessing us, don't they? But yeah, I think that's all our thoughts. I would say we have many, but we don't want to bore you with some, you know, French philosopher.
That's really rude,
little
actually.
chats and stuff.
Maybe
You
you
don't.
don't know the people. Also, I didn't mention a single French philosopher minus the one that was already mentioned in the show. I mentioned an Italian
Not
anthropologist.
philosopher,
I
but you
mentioned
mentioned a
an
French
Italian
author.
anthropologist, and also for anyone who cares, the whole stigma is a theory brought up
Italian
by Gail
anthropologist. That is
Peterson.
going
So
deep.
that's yeah.
That is
Fuck
going deep. Did you
you.
see Jordan
No,
Peterson?
I said Gail Peterson is the woman that came up with the whole stigma.
Oh right, because if you listen to Jordan Peterson, I'm not sure what I'd think of you.
Do I look like somebody that listens
To
to Jordan Peterson?
Yeah, I was gonna say you're definitely not his target audience.
A black woman, really?
Mate, you'd be surprised, man. You'd be
Yeah, there's a lot of
surprised.
coons about.
You'll be. Gee, well, we might be cutting that out. But anyway, before we start talking, before I bring up Andrew
Oh
Tate,
Jesus!
guys, don't forget to obviously don't forget to review. What is rate, review, subscribe? Isn't it?
Mm,
Rate, review, subscribe on all our platforms. Forget to drop us DMs. It's tough out here. Don't forget to drop us DMs and obviously send us suggestions on what you might want to listen to. Obviously, you want to be on the show. Reach out to us. We would see what we can do. Or if there's like any TV shows you're feeling right now, just let us know and just reach out to us because we really appreciate it and it really helps us in the long run. Merci beaucoup, mademoiselle, for coming on the show.
thank you very much for having me. I'm very happy to talk about this show, and I'm really excited for the next few episodes.
So when you talk in a French accent, have you got a French accent? Well, sorry, when you talking French, have you got a French accent or have you got
Tu
like
demandes quoi?
a British
Puis
person doing
peut-être
a
tu
French?
peux déterminer si j'ai un accent français ou un accent anglais. C'est toi qui peux déterminer. Toi, tu penses quoi? Tu penses que j'ai un accent anglais ou un accent français?
Yeah, you definitely sound like somebody, some British person doing a
Oh,
French.
really? That's great.
Jeez, I feel like clapping just then. And you guys talk too fucking quick, man.
Non, je
Come
parle
on,
pas trop vite.
relax, man.
Je parle pas trop vite. Je parle
Oh,
vraiment lentement.
anyway,
Parce que moi,
see you guys.
you have not met real French people who speak fast. I do not speak fast. I speak slow
No,
because a
no.
lot of my vocabulary I even forget. So
I went to. What do you call
should I stop
the
recording on
outskirts of
GarageBand,
Bordeaux?
please? Because I don't want Banky to just hear me speaking French.
No, leave it on the
Oh
podcast.
gosh.
I haven't closed it off yet. I went to Bordeaux and I literally asked, I was like, Anglais? And I was like, no. I was like, wow.
Yeah,
And
French
she started
people
talking
really don't
real
like people
quick.
who like start speaking English to them. They'd much rather you try and speak
It's
French
pretty
and then
mad
they'd
though.
speak.
So I was kind of like, it's sort of the audacity of British people like me. I'm like, how dare I come to your country and you don't know the language in my country? How dare
But
you?
French people are particularly like like they're very like proud of their language, so they really don't
Yeah,
entertain people who
that's what I'm
don't
trying to learn,
speak
isn't it?
like French. Like they really hate it.
So I'm really trying to get Duolingo back up. But anyway, I think that's our French discourse for the week. Anyway, we'll see you guys next week. Thank you a lot, Hajer, again when Sydney Sweeney comes on. Au revoir, mes amis.
Goodbye, everyone.